Welcome back once again to Wizard World Virtual Experiences as the crowd emojis wildly. And you can physically applaud and make some noise and hoops and hollers as well. We just won't hear you, so show us your love via those emoji buttons, thumbs up and hearts on Facebook, all those funky things you can pick on Twitch and YouTube. You basically are stuck to just exclamation points. But sound off right now in the comments. We are watching the comments. My name is Mike G. I'm your host for this evening's Wizard World Rewatch Wednesday of Spaceballs, the panel. This is Spaceballs, the panel, the rewatch, and I am joined by some amazing folks, some of our favorite podcasters, YouTubers, moderators, bloggers hanging out with us in the call. Let's start first to my left. He could be anywhere on your screen, let's be honest, in Zoom. He is a well-known sportscaster, host of the Hall of Justice podcast, one of Wizard World's very own moderators, Seth Everett. Welcome for being here today.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to see you. You have a better background, but I have a prettier girlfriend.
You do have a prettier background. I just have a more themed background, if you will.
That's right.
Thanks for hanging out, Seth. Immediately underneath Seth on my computer, he is Captain Kyle, executive producer of Fandom Spotlite and host of the Governor Reacts series. Let's hear it for Kyle Williamson. Kyle, thanks for coming back.
Hey, my pleasure. It's always fun to hang out with you guys. And though I am a little envious of Seth's girlfriend, though she might be
on
older
Christmas
than him.
Day, baby.
She might be quite a bit older. So I don't know. Is she a cougar?
That's
what I want to know.
That's true. We don't know what's going on in that whole timeline jump situation with 1984, but we're going to find out. And last but not least, Wizard World's very own Kyle accurately described him as the most genuine moderator on the team.
We're all a bunch of phonies.
Can't wait. The other moderators right here in the room. So two of the other main moderators are with me. So we can't be too.
The most genuine moderator, Jerry Milani, is here as well. Jerry, thanks for shout out in the comments wherever the great Jerry. Shout out in the comments where you're watching from, what your fandom of Spaceballs is, or Mel Brooks, and how it started. We'll read off any fun comments that we see that come through, any questions that you have. Bipsy Boo is already watching on Twitch and said, OML, I love Spaceballs. And that's right. We all love Spaceballs, and that's why we're all here. In case you missed it, just this past weekend, Jerry Milani moderated a panel with George Weiner and Stephen Tobolsky of the film, and not only of Spaceballs, but of, Jerry pointed out numerous times on the panel, what was it total together, Jerry? Like 500 or something?
Yeah, it was almost 500 total movies. It's like 475 credits between them.
Wow. Some amazing actors, and not only comedic, we even dived into some of their more dramatic roles and how that was a big influence, and some of their most standout memories are not only comedic roles, but were also the dramatic roles as well. I forgot that Steve Tobolsky was the main character in Memento, one of my favorite movies. And he brought it up on the panel. I was like, oh my gosh, totally forgot about that.
I mean, you're allowed to forget. It's Memento.
Yeah, hey, there you go.
If they had a few more,
okay.
If they had a few more seasons of Dexter, Steven probably would have been one of the killers. Like John Lithgow went from Third Rock to being Incredible Killer. I could see Steven doing the same thing.
100%.
But it's funny how you guys will see on these Wizard virtual panels, somebody will come on and then 2 weeks later they'll be back for something totally different. Like these actors are so well-rounded that we know them from these iconic franchises, and yet they have other iconic franchises with totally different fan bases.
Yeah, we just did Hallmark movies on Sunday also, which we're going to talk about later tonight. And every one of them was in a sci-fi thing or a Wizard World type thing that we got to, we didn't get to talk about it because we had so many people there. But you're right. They all were return people just about.
Frank Bonenno is checking in from Louisiana in the comments and says, Frank has been a fan of Mel Brooks ever since he first saw Blazing Saddles. I know that's a big one for everybody. I'd love to go around the room and just ask about your particular entry point, maybe into Mel Brooks, and sort of how that tied in with Spaceballs specifically. Seth, you want to kick us off?
Spaceballs was one of the early ones because I was really young when it came out, and I didn't know the iconic legacy of Mel Brooks, but I did know Star Wars. And so a lot of people's jumping off point for Spaceballs is Star Wars. You either come from that genre or you come from the Mel Brooks world. And it just really depends on how old you are. So Spaceballs was something I needed to see because I needed to see what the difference between Joan Rivers' character would be to C-3PO. Like that's what I was craving early on, that, and I needed a code for my luggage.
I have the same one. I have absolutely the same one on my luggage.
Kyle, how about yourself?
I mean, all of Mel Brooks' stuff. I remember Blazing Saddles just being so awesome. And one of my favorites of his is To Be or Not to Be. It's
a great one. That's a great movie.
Yeah. It's got its like almost dark moments, but a lot of it is just like so great. When he impersonates Hitler and is like, "You say my nose is like a pickle," it's just great stuff. But of course, I've always been a sci-fi fan, had to see Spaceballs, got big Star Trek fan, big Star Wars fan, big Planet of the Apes fan. That ending was just like, oh shit, there goes the planet. It was just like, the best thing ever to finish off that movie. So, spoilers, I'm sorry.
Didn't have the warning.
What's the moratorium on that? 30 something years.
Yeah, oh my God.
Kyle, you mentioned To Be or Not to Be, and it's one of the rare remakes that's about as good, at least as good as the original. If you haven't seen the original, go back and watch it. It's mostly word for word, but I mean it's a new set of actors, and they do it extreme justice. I'm a Blazing Saddles guy. It's probably the first one I saw. I probably wasn't allowed to see it when I saw it. I'm a little older than you kids, but that was my first one. In college, we watched over and over and over and over and over again History of the World. Yeah. Know every line of it. All of us have seen it a million times, use the lines all the time. My upset favorite, though, is called The 12 Chairs. Oh. It's his second movie, and it's different than all these other ones. It's somewhere between producers and the later ones, and it's got a heart. It's really good. I love it, and that's my upset favorite Mel Brooks movie.
That's great.
That's awesome. I remember, so I definitely was a little too young for when the big ones were coming out, right? When it was like Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs. But I do remember History of the World playing on Comedy Central, and me like sneaking it in because it was like pretty racy for like a young hormonal teenage boy, and I remember being very like into that sort of style of like comedy, and like just kind of like hiding the Comedy Central in my bedroom somewhere. But the one that, and this is funny because it was definitely like a later film that people maybe don't chalk up as being the most quality film, but the one that hit me at the exact right age was Robin Hood Men in Tights. It was like early 90s, you know what I mean? The spoofs had like, now because of Mel Brooks, and I didn't realize it at the time, the spoofs were a big thing, you know what I mean, in the early 90s. There's all kinds of people making these like similar kind of movies. And then that's what made me go back, because I was already a Star Wars fan. I saw Robin Hood Men in Tights, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here? This, and people are like, oh, this is the same guy who did Spaceballs, the same guy who did History of the World.
Cary Elwes also in Robin Hood.
And unlike some Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
I remember one of my like first nerdy debates, and we are all now, how many nerdy debates are we in? Thousands, you know what I mean? Like hundreds of thousands of nerdy debates in. I remember one of my...
you meant today.
Yeah, speak for yourself, Mike.
I remember like arguing pretty hard for the quality of both Kevin Costner's performance in Robin Hood, and then because people brought it up as a joke in Robin Hood Men in Tights, and I was like, actually, like I think that movie's like pretty good. I feel like Morgan Freeman does a great job, and that was again one of my first nerdy soapboxes I stood on.
And since you have viewers in Louisiana, Cary Elwes was we did a panel in 2020. We did a panel with Cary Elwes at Wizard World New Orleans.
We did.
And he referenced Robin Hood Men in Tights, a good chunk of that.
Yeah, I think it's that one. I mean, I think it's sort of the 90s generation. It brought all those 90s generation kids back so and to rediscover all the movies. It took me a long time before my arguable favorite now, and my favorite now is Young Frankenstein, but I didn't see it live. I didn't see it at the time. I just like went back and like rediscovered it and did not stop laughing the entire time. And I was like, this is genius. And again, still sitting there as like a 13-year-old kid, like being like, oh my God, I wish I was back in when this first came out in the 80s. You know what I mean?
That's a movie you could literally just find on a streaming service somewhere and just be glued, and your next 2 hours of your life are done.
And Seth, like you, I think I saw the Mel Brooks spoof of all these genre films before I actually saw the genre films. Young Frankenstein I saw before I've seen any of those horror. Definitely, Spaceballs. Spaceballs would be probably the only exception that I'd seen Star Wars first, but Westerns and silent movies. And now I love all those genres, but I think it's because Mel Brooks, he spoofs them because he loves them. He doesn't spoof things he hates. He spoofs things he loves, and I think you see that with this film also.
Give Mel Brooks a lot of credit. Sorry, Kyle.
I was going to say Mel Brooks is to movies what Weird Al is to music, because Weird Al makes all these great parodies, but he's never mean-spirited. It's never detracting from the original song. It's always love. And I think that's, Weird Al and Mel Brooks are like
it's a great comparison,
same person in two different areas. But I'm sorry,
no
go
question.
on.
No, all I was going to say was Mel Brooks did a great video when the pandemic first started about staying at home and being safe. And he had his kids be outside a sliding glass door. And he was trying to explain how, because he doesn't want to catch COVID and wants to live to be able to hug his kids, he won't. And he was touching the glass. So he couldn't touch them for real. And he did a wonderful thing. Mel Brooks doesn't need to do that. Mel Brooks could just stay home and be safe by himself. And yet he did something at the very beginning of this pandemic.
Yeah. That's so interesting too, because it makes it, and this isn't a political rewatch party, but it's a Spaceballs rewatch party. But it shows.
Make sure you vote if you're in Georgia.
Yeah, it shows that it's not generational. People's opinions aren't generational; they're not ageist. Right. You know what I mean? They're just they're your opinion. You know what I mean? And so it's so fun to see people like that take a stand. But anyway, let's get to this panel. We have Gina Parker hanging out with us as well. Said, "May the shorts be with you all." We started the panel off. Obviously, we're talking about what brought us to these movies, and that is, at the end of the day, the humor, the unique style of humor. And to Kyle's point, a homage, not necessarily a parody. Obviously, they're referred to as parodies, but it's not done intentionally in a biting way. It's done out of love for these genres. So here's George and Steven talking a little bit about the longevity of the films. We'll come back real quick, and then I want to go into a hilarious follow-up question. But here they are talking about just why they're still popular and why people are still into these movies today. Take a look.
Well, I can tell you the result of I think, obviously, the fact that it's still, there's Star Wars still out there. Star Trek, of course, was so popular. I think those had a lot to do with Spaceballs' longevity. And one of the things that I'm sure Steve is very familiar with is when you have a situation like this where now those children are parents and they want their children to see it. So it's become something that is generational, which is wonderful. So I think, and it's Mel Brooks. I mean, it is very funny. You have wonderful people in this film. And so its longevity, I think, was a surprise to all of us. I think to Mel. But I think those are some of the reasons, and I'm sure Steve can add to that.
Yeah, I agree with George. I think the generational thing is very big, and nobody does stupid like Mel Brooks. It is the kind of, somebody said you can't really play stupid because people do that poorly. But what happens in Mel Brooks films is people are smart about the wrong things. And that creates a huge level of stupidity, which is not tied to any trend or news event or any current thing that you could tie to when this film was made. It is timeless that way.
Awesome. And apologies. I got so excited about my virtual background. I realized it was covering up George.
I kind of like it better. That was pretty cool. Popping in and out. The head came in. It was great.
Welcome to Zoom. Welcome to Zoom. He said it right there, right? Only Mel Brooks can do that brand of stupid. Jazz is watching, says, Young Frankenstein's their favorite film. Gene Wilder brought me to the Mel Brooks fandom. So again, so many entry points. You know what I mean? He really brought... he was a good producer in addition to writer and director and performer, because he was able to bring all these people together.
Well, I like what Steven was saying about this. They were smart about the wrong things.
Yeah.
There are certain comedies I can't watch because the characters are so friggin' stupid. I just can't connect with them. It's just, I can't watch what they're doing. I know they're going to get into all kinds of stuff. Whereas Mel Brooks' characters, they're smart, but like in an off way. So it actually, the combination makes it funny, but they're not stupid and I can identify with his characters.
Except whoever Mel is. Whoever Mel is,
Right.
except in here when he's
Yogurt.
If you look at all his movies, he's mostly, when he does his own role, he's not afraid to be the guy who is the butt of the jokes.
And it's
quite literally after being beamed.
May the Schwartz be with you.
What a world! What a world!
Melissa Bombach just commented, big fan of Bill Pullman in Spaceballs, obviously. Watched it with my dad as a kid, and he was my celebrity crush. So there you go. A young Bill Pullman was a big crush for a lot of folks out there, a lot of fans.
And then he became president. Fought off the aliens. It's,
Oh, I think that's when I started crushing on Bill Pullman.
And a shout out to Daphne Zuniga, who's amazing in that movie.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what did she didn't really, what was her career, the rest of her career like?
Oh, Melrose Place she was
Melrose
on, right?
Place.
That's right.
She didn't kill anybody in Melrose Place either.
They go on to talk about it. I mentioned this a little bit already, but they go on to again, we've been talking about the humor and the style of humor of Mel Brooks. It's obviously unique and one of a kind, and it's why these movies are so successful and will last forever. But it is interesting about when you're filming it in the moment, you have no idea. There's no audience. There's no, you're not able to tell, who's laughing at what or what's going on. And it is its own unique blend of humor. So here are the two actors talking about that. Did they think it was actually going to be funny at the time? We all know it's funny later on, but at the time, did they think that it was going to be funny at all? So here it is. Here's them talking about that. Take a look.
Oh, well, I think the first time I saw it, it was just Rick Moranis and I watching the screening of it, and it's not good to do it that way for the first time. Steve will tell you, an actor looks for all the flaws and all the things that he didn't do right, but he didn't make funny. So, I think I came out less confident than except it was Mel, and but I quickly realized how wrong I was. But I think the very first time, once I saw it at a screening with a lot of people there, I realized, oh, this is funny. Don't worry about what you saw that first time.
And I knew Mel Brooks's humor for years and years and years, so I just expected it was going to work, but I didn't know in what context. I had no idea really what my part was. I had no idea how it was going to fit in, and it seemed like it was just something that maybe Mel thought about on the way to work one day. It definitely is like an appendix in the digestive system of Spaceballs. It's just this little thing, but it is so delightful, and people still come up to me and go like, "Where are those stunt doubles?" It is.
I have to say, it's really one of my favorite lines in the movie. And Steve does, "You idiots! You've captured their stunt double." It's hilarious.
It's ridiculous.
An appendix in the digestive system of Spaceballs. That was a quote from this past weekend.
And how great is Jerry? Jerry has a different background. So Rick Moranis is in that background while he's not in this background. And I'm like, wait a minute, which one's the real Jerry?
Jerry is our most genuine moderator and the most virtual, works the hardest on his virtual backgrounds.
Yeah, and
I tried to change mine. She won't let me.
He made that one right there, right, Jerry? That's a Jerry hack together Photoshop.
This is my Photoshop skills here. I took the image is actually from. I had this on Blu-ray because Amazon at some point had a $20 special for a collection of all the Blu-rays. It was everything from 12 Chairs to Robin Hood. All 8 movies, 7, whatever, 9 movies, and so I had this on Blu-ray. So I'm watching it again to do this, and I'm like taking pictures of the screen at key points, and so if I move over, most of them there's like a, the pause sign is behind me, so I just kind of keep that behind me, and I turned this into a little collage of all the important things that were going to affect us on the broadcast on Saturday.
Isn't it interesting that the movie had such an effect on Steven and his career? I mean, he talks about it in panel, and that's the thing. For anybody tuning into these Rewatch Wednesdays, we barely scratch the surface of these panels. It's more of a chance for us nerds to get on a Zoom hangout and, nerd out with all of you at home. This was an hour of great material, so we always remind the fans, whether you're watching this live or later in the week, go back and check our video archive section out and watch the full 50-minute panel.
But don't watch this again.
Yeah, no. This we delete
that.
immediately. This we delete the second it goes off the.
We have 4 genuine panel leaders here. This is great.
We do. It's a type A.
But you are our leader in being genuine. We follow you.
No, but Steven, the fact that he had one scene in the entire film, and he shows up, he was like, but it's still such a big part of his life, and it was his first, he said it was his first big movie role, and it really, if not for that one scene, and we always, you take things like that for granted, he might have not had the career he had. So I just think that's super interesting that he shows up on a Spaceballs panel as a one scene actor,
So Mike, are you going to be showing him talking about, when he was getting paid $1,000 a day?
No, go into it. It'd be funny.
Because that story was great where he's like, I'm sitting there, and the first day and they don't use me. And I'm sitting there the second day and they don't use me. And I'm like, when are they going to use me? I know I was getting paid, $1,000. Like, you don't understand. It's $1,000 a day that you show up.
Yeah.
So it's like Friday and he's like, I made $5,000. I've made it. My God.
So good. Yeah. And he had no idea what the whole thing was going to be. They he joked in the last clip. He said, I think Mel Brooks just made it up on the spot. You know what I mean? And he actually is going to go into more of that in terms of his first meeting with Mel Brooks and how it led to this scene in this next clip. And obviously that is what we're all here and why we're all here and why we're such big fans is Mel Brooks. So it's great to hear them talk about their stories. Really quickly, Disposable Hero was joking around when we were saying we're going to delete this. They said, no, pass this part. In fact, never play this again. And so
very good, very clever.
Very good, Disposable Hero.
When is this happening?
Yeah.
Now. This is happening now.
That was before.
We can't.
Here is the cast talking about their relationship, and they're both very different. So take a look. This is really cool. Both of those cast members talking about their first relationship working with Mel Brooks on camera. Check it out.
Well, I had a very weird experience. You want to talk about yours first, George, since you have more significant role? I had a very weird experience about the whole thing that's kind of different from anything that's ever happened to me in any movie again, because I had not really acted in any movies except I think Keep My Grave Open in Dallas, Texas, when I was a junior in college. So I was doing a play with Bill Pullman at Los Angeles Theater Center, a play called Barabbas, and Bill was the star of the show playing Barabbas, and I was playing Pontius Pilate, something like that. I had no idea Bill was in some movie coming up with Mel Brooks, but he invited Mel to come see the play. So Mel saw the play, and in the lobby afterwards, Bill and Mel came up to me and said, well, do you want to be in this movie that Bill's doing, Spaceballs? And I'm looking at Mel Brooks, I'm going like, what? Finally, my life has meaning. and I go, well, yes, sir. He says, well, show up over in my office, and we're going to go through this part, and we'll work on it together. We'll see what happens. So I went over to Mel's office. He goes, okay, now you walk in the door, and you idiots. Now let me hear you say, you idiots. And I did that a few times. He goes, okay, you could be as big as you want. Make it even, we did this, and we went through the whole scene. He goes, fine. You got the part. Not a problem. And I'll pay you $1,000 a day. Is that good? And I go, you're kidding. And I thought like, oh my God, I've made it. And he says, well, come Monday and we'll shoot your scene and you get your $1,000. And I go, great. So I showed up Monday. I was absolutely terrified. And I sat there all day watching Bill and John and George acting, doing stuff, and I just sat there and did nothing. And I was brokenhearted. And I thought maybe I had been cut out of the movie. And the assistant director said, well, I guess you have to come tomorrow. And I went, oh, okay. Didn't work the next day. Didn't work Wednesday. Didn't work Thursday. Finally, at the end of Friday, I'm going like, am I going to work? I mean, Mel said I was going to make $1,000 for the day. And the AD said, no. You get paid $1,000 for every day you show up. And I go, what? You mean I've made $5,000 just to sit in this chair and wait for the moment to do the scene? And we walked in and we did the scene, I think like once or twice, and that was it. And I thought, this is the career for me. But more importantly, I was able to tell my mother and father that I met Mel Brooks, and they thought, this is as good as it gets.
And they were right. It doesn't get better than working with Mel. Steve is right. And I will just tell you very briefly my intro to Mel. I had done a film that was done by Mel Brooks, the company, and he had seen it. And next thing I know, he wanted to see me, which was, as Steve can tell you, remarkable in my mind. I couldn't believe it. And I walked in and he read back to me a line from the movie he had seen me in. And I went, oh, that's a good start. And anyway, he put me in a movie called To Be or Not to Be. And that was, so now I had a chance to work with him. Before I worked with him on Spaceballs. And he was, of course, in both movies. He's wonderful to work with because, as Steve is pointing out, you're sitting there because he's recreating. That's not working. And I've seen him shoot a scene as written most of the day and throw it out because he's going to get it done the way he needs it done. And you're going to go with it because he's always going to be right. He's wonderful to work with, though. He really is. He knows what he wants, which is great out of a director. And at the same time, he makes it fun. We would screw up lines all the time because we were laughing too much. And you go, hey, we're making a comedy. You'd laugh. It's what you're supposed to be doing. So, and he was, as Steve has said, it's Mel Brooks. That's the holy grail for anybody doing comedy. That was pretty special. And so to be a part of that is something that you hold on to forever.
I love the quote, we're making a comedy, it's okay to laugh, right? It sounds so obvious, and yet we needed someone to say it, during the creation process. I feel like, today's day in writing, and some of the actors I've talked to, these days, there's such a tightness around the script, and everything has to be said perfectly. And if you change an into an Bruce Campbell was talking about that the other day. Like if you turn an into an it's a whole phone call to the writers, to the producers, to everyone, and it's just a shame. And that's why, and that you can feel that levity and that creativity in the films.
Is Bruce Campbell going to be in Spider-Man 3?
Oh my gosh, that's for your Hall of Justice podcast. Don't get me excited and started on that one. The second Alfred Molina was announced.
I think Jerry Milani's going to be in it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready for my
close-up. He will be the most genuine guy in the entire movie.
You'll know he's not covering up anything. He's not a secret agent or a bad guy in disguise. It's just Jerry Milani, moderator.
Very good. Touché.
Oh my gosh. We're almost out of time. We have one more clip. Jerry brought this up a lot in the panel. Jerry, my gosh, what we said it beforehand, almost over 500 different television shows and films between the two of them, right?
Yeah, and for someone like me who watches a lot of 70s crime dramas and 80s, early 80s, these guys, in the 70s, and the 80s, those shows, being in those shows, you'd see the same kind of character actors over and over again. Steven a little bit later, George maybe started a little bit earlier, but George was in all of them. Hawaii Five-0 and every one, Emergency, every one that I loved growing up. I went back and watched his Hawaii Five-0 episode, and he plays a really, really nasty guy. Like the range that these guys have, they're not playing the same character in every one of these. They're playing different types of characters in every one of these, and you can't do 500, 475 of the same character. You have to have some range, and these guys definitely did.
Jerry, what streaming service were they on in the 70s?
They were on streaming, Channel 9, holding the rabbit ears out the window.
Trying to get your
UHF.
Your antenna.
Had to watch things live back. You know what I mean? Back
Oh my
in the day.
God.
There was
I
like
mean,
3 or 4 stations, and if you
horror.
were lucky, you could go onto UHF and get over, or go to Channel 13 and watch Sesame Street. But yeah,
And when I was in college in the Bronx, in Fordham, in 1987 to 91, the Bronx, at least that part of the Bronx, didn't have cable yet. So we were watching Super Bowls with the rabbit ears pointing out the windows.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, and you say that you joke the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, streaming services really are only within the last, 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah,
Hopefully the people in the chat know
catch
that.
them on rerun. You
Even
can
though
catch
these
them-
yams didn't, but hopefully the people in the chat, know that I was just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, you had to catch, but seriously, you did have to either catch the shows live when they were first on, or when they were in their first set of reruns. And some shows like Hawaii Five-0 were on reruns all the time. Some shows like
Star Trek,
Emergency weren't. They kind of, you had to wait. $6 Million Man, you had to wait almost 30 years for that to come back out, even on DVD because of music rights. So now there are very few shows. Some of them are out there now, but the music has changed in the background, or they've cut scenes out because there's stuff in there that they couldn't get the rights to. But it's could you imagine a time, even Seth and Kyle, all of us, when we were growing up, that you could add a flick, you could open up an iPad, and if you want, you can watch just about anything. Or you can read just about anything that's ever been created in any language.
it is pretty amazing. Well, one thing this is totally off base, but I just want to quickly say, we were watching Demolition Man the other night. And in Demolition Man, he's invited to go to Taco Bell, but not apparently in Europe. He was invited to go to Pizza Hut. We watched the Pizza Hut version, and it was so weird because I'm expecting him to talk about Taco Bell. It's like, I will invite you to dinner at Pizza Hut. And it's like, same brand, but it was just like really weird. And to see that little change.
Yeah,
and
that's one of my favorite. I love when they do the alternate posters or like the alternate titles for movies, and you see like what they have to be called in French because this word makes no sense. You know what I mean? Because it's in a very like American word.
Harold and Kumar go to Burger King.
Yeah, go to different.
They call it a Royale with cheese.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys see the reboot of Animaniacs on Hulu? They had to take an episode down because they put a phone number in it, thinking it was like a nothing phone number, and it turns out it's a real phone number, and they had to take it out because that phone number was getting called by kids.
Hi,
and
is
it's like
Jenny
an
there,
adult
please?
phone number.
867-5309.
And so like episode 6 disappeared for like 48 hours and then reappeared totally edited.
The original, the special editions.
Yes.
The where the hostages, another found. Yeah, put in your favorite lines in the chat. Disposable Hero gives a shout out to where are the hostages out there as well. But Kyle, I want to ask you about this because you study and you talk a lot about television, and these guys, we joked around in the panel that they are that guy, and that's become like this fun maybe to some, maybe not to the people that are actually that guy. But it is a common term in the actor world, the entertainment industry. They're never leads, right? They're never, you know what I mean, like huge character roles where you're like, oh, they only can play this type. They're just that guy. They're the Steve. They're the what is Ned Ryersons of the world, right? From to quote one of Steven's parts, that you're like, oh, it's that guy again. He's playing that role. And what's hilarious about these two gentlemen is they also even have a very similar look, and that was what was fun about seeing them on the panel together. Very similar look to their style, but playing completely different things. I don't know. Do any other people like that stand out to you, Kyle, or like what do you feel is the role of that guy in television and sort of film and kind of the sustainability of that?
There's I can't remember his name. There's an actor. He was in Stargate.
You're not supposed to remember his name.
Yeah. But he was in Stargate. He played this guy who in Stargate Atlantis. He played this guy who was like super popular and had all these abilities, and he was a scam artist. But he was actually in the original Stargate movie as well. But it's just like you see these people pop up all the time. Yeah. I'm watching a lot of different sci-fi series. You just see him pop up. I have seen, George in so many things. Just, he was in Stargate. I'm pretty sure he was. He's been in so much And same thing with Steven. He's been in so much, and there's just remembering their names is difficult.
I got one for you, James Hong.
Yes,
James Hong
James
is a
Hong.
very good one for that. He's exactly that guy, but everybody knows who he is.
And he always plays very similar.
Yeah.
And what's funny is there was a movie that my friend Jason Douglas was in. It was a low budget film, and James Hong was in it. And they actually, the way they shot his role, because they shot it at a much earlier time, you can't really tell that he was not interacting with the actual actor that he was supposedly interacting with. But it was just, he's definitely one of those, that guy. And there's just people who love to work. One of my favorite actors, John Reese Davies. He's in like Lord of the Rings, and then he's in like Sharknado 17. You know, he's Mr. Mallory, I just want to work. You know, that's all I want. So he's just.
They were guest stars on the Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, and the A-Team, and it was like they all played the same guy. What about Gary Cole?
Oh,
Gary Cole, you know, from
Brady Bunch movie.
Harvey Birdman. He's on Veep. He's been doing all these different things, and he's popping up everywhere.
But that's a good, and that's a good point. It's not necessarily the genre of the character. There's definitely like that guys in dramas, and I think that's sort of where that comes from, or those, But then there's the sci-fi that guys. There's the comedy that guys. I always think like for someone who's played so many roles and very very unique roles to a lot of sci-fi people, Adam Baldwin to me is another one that's just like always like a sci-fi or like military guy in things, you know what I mean? And he was that guy to me for like a long time, even before Firefly and everything and all stuff. But yeah.
And I know he had a bigger role in Buffy, but James Marsters appears in a lot of things you look up, and there he is.
Smallville.
Shows.
He was Brainiac.
Yeah. So this is fun. Again, they take it on the chin, and what's great about hearing this is they didn't scoff at it or anything or say like, oh, well, like blah, blah. They really accept who they are. That's part of it, I think, is accepting like, hey, this is what I'm good at. You know what I mean? I know I'm good at it. And so I'm going to embrace it. And so here's them giving some that guy acting tips, if you will, or how to be that guy in Hollywood. Take a look.
Well, I can tell you the result of I think obviously the fact that it's still, there's Star Wars still out there. Star Trek, of course, was so popular. I think those had a lot to do with Spaceballs longevity. And one of the things that I'm sure Steve is very familiar with is when you have a situation like this where now those children are parents and they want their children to see it. So it's become something that is generational, which is wonderful. So I think, and it's Mel Brooks. I mean, it is very funny. You have wonderful people in this film. And so its longevity, I think, was a surprise to all of us. I think to Mel.
That is not having anything to do with that guy.
It's the wrong clip.
That's a repeat of the clip before. Let me see if I can pull it up for us really quick. Bring up some more other that guys.
Richard Kind, I looked it up while the clip was running.
Oh, sure.
Richard
Mad about
Kind.
you.
He has been in so many things, and he's just like, and he's got a similar look. It's like they don't have the leading man look. They have the everyman look. So they can actually be every man in anything you want to watch. That's what I think I'm going to eventually be, is the everyman. I'll be right next to Jerry in all the movies.
I'll be the genuine man. You be the everyman. Seth, you be the sportsman, and we'll have it all together as a group. We'll all have IMDb credits. Yes.
Here's that guy clip. It was weirdly still labeled that guy, but then switched over to the other one. It's going to take a second because I just have to get the audio up really fast. But here we go, everybody.
It's a little big.
Yeah. We're just going to get it set up.
Long term,
you scary, too big.
Show them you can do more than one thing. You may get introduced in a certain way, in comedy, I think, certainly for me. But to be able to transition over is very important for your longevity, for people them to think of you in some other way. So that's been of value, and you have to get that first opportunity to do it. Who's going to hire you as the head of a drug deal organization or something? But when it happens, you hope you take your best shot with it, and that's a big part of it. And then basically it's just yeah, it's having somebody take a shot with you. And when you're done something serious with somebody good, you can count on the fact that you're going to be seen doing it. And that helps.
Yeah, a couple things I want to follow up on that George was saying. Comedy is really important because about 90% of what you're going to be asked to do as an actor has to do with comedy. So you have to be able to do comedy. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned, and I haven't heard it mentioned at a lot of these fan shows before or by anyone, casting directors. I found that a casting director wants to bring an actor into the room that even if they don't get the part is going to make them look good for the director or producer. So a lot of times, like in my case, the same casting director would bring me in for various projects, like Howard Fuhrer. In the old days, I don't know, George, if you worked with Howard, but he brought me in for Mississippi Burning. He brought me in for Groundhog Day. He brought me in for In Country. So if there is a casting director that begins to trust you as an actor, you will get a lot of opportunities. And of course, as George says, if you do well in a film that people see and is well thought of, people will call on you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for this slight technical glitch there, but it's so interesting to listen to them and get their perspective on things, because you see all the interviews with Mel Brooks and Bill Pullman and the star, Joan Rivers, but you never get to hear from that guys, you know what I mean? And I think it's nice to have that opportunity to talk and hear their perspective on it.
I think having that guy in your movie is almost like a seal of authenticity.
Yeah.
If you have one of these, if someone watches your movie and they're like, I have seen that guy in 50 other things, then that makes your movie a lot more legitimate than any other movie.
Great point. Yeah. We are out of time here. This was super fun hanging out. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Jerry. A couple quick housekeeping things, and then I want to go around the room and hear a little bit from each of our panelists. We're Wizard World. As you know, you're in the right place. These are our Rewatch Wednesdays, where we rewatch some of our favorite clips from the past weekend. Later this evening, in about an hour's time, no matter where you are, happening right now in an hour, will be our rewatch of the Hallmark Christmas movie panel, and we're bringing on the two podcasters who do Remark. It is where they watch a Christmas movie a day and then just talk about it in fun holiday spirit. So definitely check that out. We have the guests from Remark podcast joining us later to watch some Hallmark Christmas movies. Tomorrow we're going to be not only watching the TMNT Teenage Ninja Turtle Thursday panel with the animated actors, but also our movie panel. So it's going to be a combo, and we're bringing on Turtle Recall podcast. Great name, Turtle.
Nice.
Will be joining us tomorrow, in addition to some of our cosplayer friends and experts. So that's happening tomorrow, followed by Whiz Quiz. It is my weekly trivia night, free to play, free prizes to win. So join myself for Whiz Quiz tomorrow night. And then this weekend, we got a lineup on Saturday. We have voice actors from the DC animated universe. Our very own Seth Everett will be chatting with Samantha Fox, music legend.
Want to have some fun.
Very nice. And then Eddie Furlong, the very first John Connor, will be joining us in the afternoon or late evening, depending on what coast you're on. And then we have our very first international event. We're going to be bringing on the cast of Gotham. They'll be speaking in English, so you can still watch, but it's going to be translated live into Japanese as well for our Japanese audience. So we're very excited for
that's awesome.
International event on December 20th. So that's just scratching the surface. Some of the things we have coming up next. But continue to follow us at Wizard World on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and follow our schedule. But let's go around the room and find out where we can hang out with some of these awesome gentlemen. Seth, tell us a little bit about yourself and where we can find you.
Let's see. What would these folks be interested in? You can hit me up on Twitter at Seth_Everett on Twitter. The Hall of Justice podcast comes out on Thursdays. This week, we are reviewing the new CGI Netflix Transformers series.
Oh.
Then next week is The Mandalorian season 2 finale. And then the week after is Wonder Woman 1984. So we got a big month for the Hall of Justice podcast.
Very nice. Thanks, Seth. Seth, I want to rent a theater in Jersey, and Jerry might be in. So anyway,
HBO Max, baby. 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Popcorn at my house.
Kyle, tell everybody where we can find out stuff from you.
Well, I am with Fandom Spotlight, which you can find on YouTube and at fandomspotlight.com. You can also check out, if you're into toys like the Transformers, you can also check out Toy Spotlight, which is our other YouTube channel where we review toys and go through not just the new stuff, but the stuff from way back in the day. And yeah, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Fandom Spotlight, LITE, because we don't like to spell things normally. And and if you go to our channel, you'll see a lot of the Wizard World panels, both from these virtuals and from the actual live shows. In fact, the last show right before everything shut down, we have panels from that show with the Cats of Teen Wolf, and I think we had Carrie there and stuff like that. So lots of stuff on there. Plus, the Governor Reacts. If you like The Walking Dead, talk like this and make fun of the show. So, and we have other stuff too. So just check it out. And yeah, hope to see you around the internet.
Very cool, Kyle. Thanks again. Yeah, we love Fandom Spotlight. They're always do a great job of cross-promoting with us, and so we appreciate it. And Kyle, get ready. We've got a Walking Dead weekend coming up to celebrate the premiere of the new season in late February. So we're definitely going to have you back. Or the governor. Well, we would like to extend an invitation to the governor and see if the governor would like to join us.
I'm sure he'll be very interested in checking that out.
Yeah. Awesome. And last but not least, Jerry, what do you got going on these days?
Yeah, well, in an hour you can
tell us
find
about
me
yourself,
about,
Jerry.
You can talking about Hallmark movies in an hour.
Yeah.
We did the panel on Sunday, which was lots of fun. To have, I always look, and we always joke about this in the pre-calls when we get on, but I go through, and when I see in the meetings that we're going to have a certain type of show that we're going to be doing, I make sure I throw my name in there first. And so the ones that I get to host are the ones I really want to host. So I had a lot of fun on Sunday with that. I had a lot of fun on Sunday with all the stars from Hallmark, and you'll see if you stay with us in an hour how much fun that was. But you can find me being very genuine at Wizard World all the time.
Very nice. And less genuine and often put on, I am Mike G. You can follow me at Mike G Does Things, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we'll see you in 45 minutes to an hour for the Hallmark Rewatch Party, Rewatch Wednesday with Remark. And I'll try to not get tongue-tied when I introduce them later. But on behalf of Seth, Kyle, Jerry, myself, we'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.